Hello, this is Yarrow Starak, and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. Today's guest is Jordan Gray. Hi there, thank you for downloading this EJ podcast. Jordan Gray is about to share a very inspiring story in just a moment. But first, I'd like to invite you to sign up to the email list so you get these podcasts as soon as I release them. To do that, go to interviewsclub.com, which will direct you to a blog post where you can find a link to click to open up a box where you can type your email address, and then you'll be added to my email list for updates of whenever I release a brand new podcast. And you also receive a sequence of some of my very best podcasts from the archives. That's interviewsclub.com. You can sign up there. Now we're going to dive into the story with Jordan. Here we go. Hello, this is Yarrow Starak, and welcome to an Entrepreneur's Journey podcast interview. I'm looking forward to today's interview because it actually covers two of my favorite subjects. So one, the obvious one, making money through selling your knowledge, your expertise, being an information marketer and coach online, and using content marketing to do that. And my guest today is a relationship coach, and that's the other market that I find quite fascinating too, because I've had a lot of touch points over the years in the sort of male dating market. It's actually where I first got inspired to do email marketing. So my guest today is in the relationship coach business, and he's doing content marketing, and he's built his business to over 6 figures a year, has a whole bunch of books out there, and he's done this in less than 3 years. So Jordan Gray, thank you for joining me today on this interview.
Thank you for having me, Yarrow. Excited to be here.
So there's a lot that you have out there, and it's come together rather quickly. I think you've probably written about as much content as I've written in 10 years. You've done it in 2.5 years, possibly, given I'm looking at your Amazon page and I'm seeing at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books, I think, at the moment, something like that. Plus you have courses you sell, you have a lot of content on the blog. So you've done a lot in a short period of time. So we got a lot to cover. But just so I get the highlight reel completely accurate, because I have a list of the things you've done. So first of all, you're making 6 figures a year through primarily selling coaching and your online course. That's correct, right?
Yes.
You also have been featured on BBC, Thought Catalog, Huffington Post, Business Insider. So you've obviously got a great angle in this market of relationships, because that's a fairly saturated market. So you must have come to the world with a relatively new angle or new take on this. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people go into the relationship space and they focus on the dating, how to get into relationships, kind of advice that I think that you can really find on any Maxim, Ask Men, Men's Health kind of website, which are great publications. But I think that end of the spectrum is much more saturated, the how to get into any relationship market, whereas I've gone after primarily married clients or people that are engaged and entrepreneurial clients. So as I'm sure you know more than most, a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of problems in their dating and relationship lives, especially when their businesses are doing really well. Sometimes they deprioritize their marriages. So I'm there to kind of bring some balance to that aspect of their life.
Interesting topic. I'd love to hear how that came about as a niche. Before we do that, let's go back in time. So I'd love to know how you became an expert at this subject. We're going to have to find out about all your relationships, I think, Jordan, to make this credible.
Sure.
Where are you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, where I still live.
Okay. And did you go to school and university, traditional sort of career path?
I did, but not in relationships or psychology. So yes, I went to high school, I went to university, but I actually went to university for film and photography. So I worked in the film industry for a couple of years part-time while I was actually self-educating in psychology and relationships outside of my schooling.
Okay, so when you entered, was that with UBC? Was that the...
Capilano, North Shore.
Yep, yeah. So when you started that course, were you thinking career path following this university degree, or was that more for fun while you figured out something else?
Yeah, I think I I was 17 years old, and I just was out of high school, and I knew that I wanted to be doing something. So I just went into film because it was the thing that most appealed to me at the time, and I actually had a photography business where I was photographing weddings and doing videography for weddings. So I knew that I was always drawn to love and relationships in general. I just didn't, I knew that I didn't want to be a general therapist. I didn't want to be a divorce counselor. And the job that I wanted, I didn't really, it didn't exist. I couldn't find any degrees in helping people have better relationships. So I kind of just created it on my own by self-educating for that decade.
So how does one do that? So you're studying formal university education, but then you're just buying books from Indigo chapters on psychology and relationships. Is that what you did?
Exactly. Yeah, my room was just hundreds of books on sexuality, relationships, attraction, all that stuff.
So how were you applying that to your own life, or you studying your friends or something like that? Do you have little experiments going?
I think that so it's a bit of nature and nurture. So from a really young age, like all of my earliest memories are of me on the playground talking to girls about dating and relationships. Even before any of us were dating. Like I had my first girlfriend when I was 5 years old. I had girlfriends from 12 years old onwards. Like I intentionally put as little effort into all of my schooling as possible so that I could focus on being the best boyfriend possible. Like for me, I knew at the youngest age that there was something in relationships that my career path would be. And so, yeah, my life has definitely been a petri dish of experimentation, and not that I saw it that way at the time because I didn't know that there was a career path ahead of me that I could reliably find or create. But yeah, I've been very relationally minded my entire life.
Are you married?
I'm not married. I have a girlfriend.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're advising married men, but you're not married yourself.
Yeah,
That's very cool. Okay, so it's more about what you've been able to bring to the table in terms of experience in
creating
relationships
results.
and your education. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you graduate from university and then you face this point. I need to start making a living. Is that correct?
I was already making a living doing wedding photography and working part-time jobs here and there since weddings are predominantly in the summer, at least in Vancouver, when the only nice weather happens. And so I remember there was this turning point where I felt fairly unsatisfied. I didn't want to be working evenings and weekends just doing photos for years. And I was on this website, I Googled something like what to do with your life or what's your ideal career path. And I forget what the website was. I wish I remembered, but there's this one prompt that said something along the lines of, look at what kind of books you're generally drawn to, because that might reveal something about what you're interested in. So I looked around my bedroom. I saw 0 books around, photography or film or lighting, and hundreds of books on sexuality and psychology and relationships. And so I was like, well, there's clearly something there. Like that's the section that I go to when I'm in chapters. So maybe I should try and make a career path out of that. So at that point, I Googled something on the lines of Vancouver dating relationship help for men. I found a company that was doing something as close as possible to what I wanted to be doing. And I basically forced my way in there. I worked for them for free for months until they realized how valuable I was. Then they hired me officially.
What did you do for them?
So it was a combination of teaching social skills to people with social anxiety, but then it was also like 30% dating skills. So, here's how to make eye contact, be a good conversationalist, be more assertive, teaching the basic building blocks of humor. And then we would take some of that and apply it to, how do you meet people at a networking conference? How do you approach a woman on the street that you find attractive, talk to her for a few minutes and get her phone number? That kind of context.
Okay, and were you teaching at that stage, or what was your actual day-to-day job?
Yeah, I was teaching.
Okay.
I was teaching for them. I was their head instructor for just under 3 years. I rewrote all their curriculums, trained their trainers in multiple cities, and basically rode that for as long as I wanted to until it felt like it wasn't fun anymore. And that's when I left that company and started my own just about 3 years ago.
Okay. So was that business, correct me if I'm wrong, was that considered a, like, I hate putting labels on it, but I know there's the pickup artist community and then there's sort of more generic relationship coaching. And I think those two things, while there's a lot of overlap, people see them differently. You know, one is Neil Strauss and the game and that sort of
Yeah.
world. And then the other world is just your psychology experts and counselors and therapists and those sorts of people. So which one was that business in?
Yeah, it's definitely a sliding scale. I'd say that company, which it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Social Fluency. That company was definitely, a 2 out of 10, kind of like a little bit of pickup elements of it. But because it was so social skills focused, there really wasn't any there was any of the intentional manipulation that the actual pickup or seduction industry has underneath it.
Or the negative press that seems to garner at the moment as well. So,
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so can we timestamp this? How old were you when you finished your 3 years at that company to start your own?
I was 24.
Okay, so yeah, you're pretty young. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're still pretty young right now. When was 24? So how many years ago was that?
That was 4 years ago. I'm 28 and a half right now.
Okay, so we've got 4.5 years to go from basically starting your business to where you're at now with all these books, all this coverage, six-figure business, and so on. So what did you do first when you left their business, knowing now you've seen how their business was run? You must be thinking, well, I can do something similar, but I'm going to do it my way. Is that what happened?
Yeah, exactly. I think that by the end of being with that company, I felt like my integrity had kind of been drained to a large extent because I felt like I'd realized that I'd been helping people get into relatively surface level relationships. And it was really, on the soul level, it was really unfulfilling by the end of it. At the beginning, I loved it. And it was amazing. It was a total high. But by the end of it, I was pretty miserable. So for the first few months, I lay low. I didn't take any of my clients from that company, but I think 3 or maybe 4 of them messaged me on Facebook and said, hey, do you still do coaching one-on-one? Is it cool if I hire you? Ethically, is that all good? And I was like, yeah, you reach out to me, so that's fine. So I kind of coached them part-time one-on-one for 4 to 6 months while contemplating my life and wondering, should I do an entrepreneurial venture? Should I go back to some form of, soul-sucking normal person job, even though I never really had one of those to begin with? And it just morphed over time where I realized that, yeah, I do really still enjoy coaching, but I want to be, inspiring more depth and authenticity and self-exploration through whatever I'm doing. And so that started to morph into, well, maybe I should make a personal brand. Maybe I should start writing blog posts. And since people wanted to do coaching with me one-on-one locally, I thought, well, I'll just throw up a website, get a web designer to put a PayPal button on it so that I can process these payments somehow. And it just kind of happened organically and went from there.
Okay, so 2 questions. The first one, did you feel any sense of insecurity or lack of confidence in regards to this subject matter, given, yes, you had book smarts, yes, you'd been self-experimenting, and you also had 3 years as a teacher in someone else's company, but was there any insecurity about, can I really seriously do this myself and start my own business around this subject, given, lack of formal qualifications or anything like that?
Yeah, I'd say in a huge way, yes. And then in some ways, in some supporting ways, no. So the no element, since they're a lot smaller, I'll start there. I definitely felt like I'd kind of earned my chops over the 3 years of coaching group sessions with that company. And, my students, my clients, people that I worked with ranged from 20 years old to 60. And generally, anytime that a student walked into the classroom, it was group setting. So me talking to 10 to 20 people at a time, and there was classes of men and classes of women separately. And whenever I had a client that was over 40 years old, there was always this kind of, lean back in their chair, arms folded across their chest, and expression on their face of you're clearly a child. What could you possibly tell me
You're right.
about dating relationships? And, time and time again, within 5 minutes of me opening my mouth, they would lean in and go, oh, okay, this guy has something to offer me. And I'd kind of melted through that barrier in person, face-to-face enough times that I felt confident in my abilities to provide real value through that medium. But I am such a non-technical person, and I also have a fairly I don't really have the best business mind. Like I'm not a strategically, entrepreneurial person, and I'm realizing this more and more over the last 6 months. Is kind of a fresh realization for me, but I'm the talent. I'm the Tony Robbins within my organization. I can write and I can coach and I can be the shining star, but I'm actually just now getting to the point in my business today where I'm starting to hire kind of COO and business coaching and strategy people because I'm not that. So yeah, I was terrified when I started because I was like, this is so not my world. I know that I can do relationship stuff well, but starting a business with zero business or formal entrepreneur or psychology or relationship training, yeah, it was I was in totally over my head. But I just went in with the blind faith of I'll just do the things that I'm really good at, which are writing and coaching, and I'll just do them repeatedly. And if that turns into some kind of traction, then I'll ride it out forever.
Okay, well, that leads great to the second question I have for you, which was a more technically minded question. Now, you don't necessarily have to answer this with a technical answer because obviously, if you're not technical, you can't. But you decide to run your own business, and like you said before, okay, set up website, put PayPal button, see if people pay for coaching. Did you just kind of figure that out yourself, and what exactly did you start with? And even how did you even know what to start with? Were you just sort of copying what that other company you worked for did, or did you have an idea for something unique that you wanted to do? Maybe you studied some other online personal brands and so forth.
Yeah, it was definitely unique to the other company because they were purely offline. They were all live in-person coaching with next to no online presence. So I knew that I wanted to do somewhat of the opposite, to have my business be purely, I could run it from my laptop anywhere. I wasn't really super into traveling at that point. I soon would become that kind of person once I realized that I could do coaching calls through Skype from anywhere in the world and upload blog posts anywhere there's a weak Wi-Fi connection. But yeah, I love that you asked this question because this shows really how terrible I was and still am at technology. I bought a domain name through GoDaddy. I could do that by myself.
Step one.
Step one. Yeah, I paid whatever it was, $10 or $15 for the first year of my domain name. And I think it took me either 8 or 9 days to figure out how to point. When you buy hosting and you have to point the domain and say, okay, hosting, like GoDaddy has this name, and it points or redirects or whatever. It literally took me 8 days to do that, and I cried so many times because I hated it. I was like, this is so not my area of expertise. Technology and me are sworn enemies. So I learned how to point it, to a website that barely existed, and I figured out, very quickly from all that banging my head against the metaphorical brick wall that I had to outsource it. So I asked a friend who had a pretty website in a very different industry, if they, who their designer was, and I just paid someone $1,000 and said, "Here's my idea. Here's a passable kind of headshot photo of me. Make this a thing. I know my branding is really vague because I don't really know what I'm doing right now at all. But make all the static text flexible so I can change it later when I do know what I'm doing." But yeah, I had him make it pretty and put up a PayPal button, and I wrote up some really half-assed copywriting selling my coaching. But again, at that point, I mainly wanted the website as a payment processor because I already had a couple of offline clients that wanted to just pay me somehow. And I thought, well, I'll put it through a website because maybe they'll turn into something.
Did you have an email list yet?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I had none of the smart things that people should do for their business until like 6 months into existing.
Okay. Well, let's go through the 6 months. So did you register jordangrayconsulting.com, which is what you have now? Is that domain you bought from GoDaddy?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we're starting the journey from the beginning. So Jordan Gray Consulting, you get this friend to build a website with a PayPal button that pretty much was just a page that sold the coaching so you could take money from those few clients you had. Yep. What did you do next?
Next, as an exercise in self-exploration, I just started writing a lot. And, if I could go back in time, I would love to just bury the first 50 or so posts that I ever put out because they're so scattered and have nothing to do with what I'm writing about today that, they're effectively useless except from a SEO standpoint of just having a bunch of unique content on my site. But I kind of just went day by day and thought, okay, what am I working on in my life right now? And then how can I turn that around, write it into a blog post and share it with people? And even if, only 10 people get value from it, from each one that I put out, then at least I'm getting some kind of word of mouth out there, and people know that, hey, Jordan's trying to do something. And at that point, there was zero SEO because my website was so new, and I didn't really know what SEO was at that point either, that I was just pushing it out to my, maybe 500 or 600 Facebook friends. I didn't have a fan page, didn't have a Twitter account. It was just articles go up on my website. I would do a single post on my personal Facebook that said, hey, here's this new post about this thing that I'm going through or working on, or here's some value that I think I might be able to provide to you.
Can I ask you, given the personal nature of your subject matter, and then you're sharing it with your Facebook friends and on a public blog, it's a bit unique to your subject matter. Were you writing about your own relationships, and was your girlfriend okay with that? How does that part work?
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot, and I love it because it ties heavily into this other question that people ask, which is, do you follow your own advice?
Right.
And for me, it's funny because it's, in the way that I live my life, it's kind of a backwards question because I kind of just am the way that I am. And then I go, and then usually my girlfriend will point out something that, hey, you did this thing, and it was really sweet. And I'll go, oh, I guess that is a nice thing to do for your partner. And so then I'll write a post called, 10 romantic things to do for your partner that are just basically backwards engineered things that I've taken from my life. So it's not, I write content that sounds, oh, this would be a nice thing to do. It's usually reverse engineered from my relationship. And so with that, I've been dating my girlfriend for about a year now. And I warned her about that on basically I don't know if it was our first date or at least second or third date,
right,
that I was like, whoa, I'm really going to fall in love with you quickly. Just to give you a heads up, not a heads up, but I asked her, how comfortable do you feel me using stories about our relationship and ideally also photos of us in my personal brand? And she's like, yeah, it's an extension of you. That's totally fine. So she's extremely supportive and has never been weirded out about it at all.
That's now, but what about when you first started your blog and you first posted to Facebook? That was a different girlfriend, or maybe you were single back then? I don't know.
I think at that point, yeah, I was single for the first year or so of brand building. I also didn't mention that when I left that company after those first few months of coaching, when I first launched my website, I thrive off of people telling me that I can't do something. And so after I put out my first 10 or 20 blog posts and a couple of people were like, oh, this is really cool, but you can't make a living writing, you can't, whatever. There's all the naysayers that love to have their say in your life. There was actually a moment where within a 48-hour period, I gave away or donated 95% of all the physical things that I own in the world. I bought a ticket to Southeast Asia, and I went and lived. I didn't know how long I was going to be gone for, but I left Canada. I left the country with the mindset of I'm not going to come back until I'm self-supporting from this venture. So earlier, exactly. And especially, I'm an Aries Taurus. I'm both of the stubborn signs, and my ego just was very, very firmly planted in place. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back until I'm not only self-supporting my travels, but also able to come back and live in Vancouver, which is a relatively expensive city, from what my business is doing. And I think it was just before the call you asked me how I was able to write my books so quickly. And I did actually write, edit, publish and launch my first 3 books within the first 2.5 months of travel, because that was part of the intention was, okay, I know that books will give me leads and revenue. And so I wrote like a madman and, spent 6 to 10 hours most days writing these books and then put them out there.
So this is in that first 6 months of deciding to start this business. Okay, so you left Vancouver, you write books first, as well as the blog posts that you shared on Facebook. So still no email list. You went books next. Yeah. And how did you, I'm trying to get at what your strategy was at the time. You're just thinking, let's throw stuff out using different platforms and see if it gets me clients? Is that the idea?
There was multiple. So give myself some credit for thinking strategically, even though I don't know how strategic it was in the moment. It's more of just a thing I can look backwards and connect the dots now. But I think a big part of the strategy was, okay, my website basically doesn't exist. Like Google doesn't even know about it. If you Googled my name, my website wouldn't pop up yet. I thought, well, Amazon's a big site. They are highly ranked in terms of page rank and domain authority. And whatever their traffic is, it's a lot more than mine. So I thought I'm going to leverage their existing community. And so, yeah, I put out the books for lead generation somewhat. But I think the main reason was I knew how scared I was of starting this whole process. And, I was afraid that I would have to fly back to Canada 4 months into travel with my tail between my legs and, tell my parents and best friends, all these people that I told that I gotta go be a successful entrepreneur, that, it turns out I'm broke and everyone is right. The dating relationship space is totally saturated and I shouldn't have tried. And so I needed at that point, I needed the feedback of being able to get any kind of a sale. And, I already had a couple coaching clients that I was doing Skype coaching with now that I was out of the country, but those are people that I already knew. And I needed the ego validation or the satisfaction of knowing that someone who wasn't a friend or former client or family member would know about my website and would pay me anything. And I remember being in Bangkok, actually, just a few weeks after having left Vancouver and getting my first sale, my first ebook. And it was 99 cents, which means that my take was 35 cents, which is really, nothing. Like, that, even in Thailand, that doesn't pay for a dish of pad thai.
All right.
But I remember, it is a common theme, but I remember crying tears of joy. It was like, oh my God, someone actually bought my book. And because it's Amazon, I can't track who it is. So it could have been my mom. I really don't know. But I think just seeing that first sale of any human on the internet saying that they found ideas that I was putting out there valuable, I was just hooked from that point. I thought, okay, if I can make $1 revenue, I can make $100,000 of revenue. But I needed that, I needed something about the internet to be validated from an outside perspective.
How much of a buffer did you have when you started these travels? Like you said, you might have to come back 4 months. Was that about how much savings you had when you made this jump?
Yeah, I think I had, maybe $10,000 available to me.
Canadian.
And Canadian, exactly. Much less than American right now.
Yeah.
And a part of that was going to my web designer, who I paid up front. And
really
making the website and the initial flight out of the country was like, oh, there's a month of living expenses by Southeast Asian standards, so better find a way to make money.
Yeah, let's talk about pressure. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'm just curious, which book was the first one that sold?
The first one, which is the most off-brand thing that I have out there, is called How to Be the Most Engaging Person in the Room Every Time.
Okay, so it's more a confidence, personal sort of, what do you call it, public speaking kind of book than a relationship book.
Yeah, it was like how to deeply connect with people socially. So it was kind of a mix between what I had been doing with the previous company and how to win friends and influence people, but just packaged into like a 30-page little thing. It was like a long blog post of stuff that I already knew how to do.
Right, I was going to ask you that. So the first books you wrote while you were in Southeast Asia, how big were they? Like, and how long did they take you to write?
So that first one was about 30 pages. The second book was about 50 pages, and the third book was about 75 pages. The first one retailed for $1. The other ones were $3 each. And I wrote and edited and put out all three of the books within just under 2.5 months. So
how did you deal with the technical parts, like getting it onto Amazon, getting a cover done, getting it formatted, since technical is not your strong point?
I downloaded an ebook from a guy named Tom Corson Knowles, who's now a personal friend of mine, but I didn't know him at the time. He was just someone that I admired because, here's a guy who can write Amazon books. And wow, like, how did he get that contract? How did Amazon say yes to him? Which, now I know is totally faulty, and anyone can get a book up on Amazon. But I downloaded one of his ebooks that basically said, here's how to format a book. And it was surprisingly simple. It's basically, and it still is, write it up in a Word document, which Mac and PC both have. Even that much about tech I knew back then. So I wrote up in Word. I formatted it to the specifications of what this book said to do, and then I got a cover designer on Fiverr to make all three of my covers for $5 each.
And then you uploaded it yourself through Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
So you did it all yourself, basically.
Yeah, completely.
Well done. Okay, great. What was the guy's name again? Who you followed? Just
Tom Corson Knowles.
Tom Corson Knowles. Okay, we'll put that with the show notes just in case. Okay, so great. So you made your first dollar on the internet. Yeah. How did you get to the point? Well, take us forward in the story. You've got this 4-month deadline. You've spent 2.5 months to write 3 books. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing you started seeing a few more sales from Amazon. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, exactly. Those rolled in a lot faster than I thought they would have. I was actively marketing them. I went back and retroactively added links to all 3 of these books to all of my existing blog posts.
How are you marketing them?
Which, the books?
Yeah.
So I put links in my existing content, but very similar to what I did for my blog posts. I put links to my existing content, and then I just did dedicated posts and blasts. And I would, at this point, maybe I had 800 Facebook friends, because now that I was a content creator, people started to add me on Facebook and subscribe and follow along that way, since, again, I didn't have an email list at this point. So they're like, well, I guess I'll follow him on Facebook, because that seems to be the only place he actually puts it out.
Okay.
And I did,
I can't believe you didn't study anyone else's stuff online. Like, I haven't heard mentioned another blogger or internet marketer or anyone to sort of follow the typical path, grow an email list, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. No, and it wasn't me being stubborn, I'll do it my own way. It's like I just had no idea, and I didn't even know to look. Like, there were people that I followed the work of that I knew. I knew that people my age could make online businesses work, but it never even crossed my mind to study the structure of what they're doing. I just thought, well, I have my strengths, and I'm just going to do only those for a while and see what happens. Mm-hmm. Very, very messy, very untargeted, but it worked eventually. So I just put out the links to each of my books whenever I launched them on Facebook, and my 5 or 10 readers that seemed to like or comment on or share all of my blog posts, I would private message them and say, hey, thanks for all the shares over these last 2 months. I just launched this book. If you could share it with your Facebook friends, I love that, and I'll send you a free PDF version of it. And I'd only target not only the friends that were, or followers that were like heavy users that love my content, but also the people that had 1,000 to 3,000 Facebook friends themselves, because I saw those as kind of their mini email list of you're much more of an influencer than I am right now, so you put it out there. And I think by the 3rd month, I was somewhere between $800 to $1,000 in book revenue, which wow. Living in Thailand and Bali, which is where I was for the first 3 months, the conversion rate's amazing. And I really wasn't spending, even though I was living in $10 to $15 a night hotels, I wasn't spending that much because life's pretty cheap there. So by the 3rd month, I was kind of traveling. I was not really in the black, but I was even. I was traveling off of my book revenue as opposed to personal savings.
And these books were all between $1 and $4?
$1 and $3. $1
and $3, and you made $800 to $1,000. That's a lot of sales of books.
Yeah, one of them, 50 Powerful Data Ideas is the name of the book, the short name of the book. That one hit the top 20 list within both of its categories. And it's still kind of this way today, but Amazon's algorithm for how easy it is to rank the #1 bestseller in one or both categories is ridiculously easy. But even more so 3 years ago, when there was very little competition in the dating relationship books on Amazon. Now it's much more saturated. But I crossed $1,000 a lot sooner than I ever thought I would, just from a thing that was there as lead generation.
So these customers then, you're getting obviously several hundred customers. Are they going into some kind of database you can access for future marketing at that point?
No, Amazon doesn't give you any of their information or email contacts.
Okay, so you just
they know about me. They can find, if they really love the book, they can Google my name and find me, but it's not a super targeted way.
So you relied on the links in the books themselves to take them back to your blog.
That is another great point. Again, back to how little I knew, I didn't put any links in any of my books because I didn't know that was a thing you could do at that point. So now I have, retroactively, all of my books have links in them. But yeah, actually, that was one of the first kind of outside business tips that anyone gave me is again, around that point, I reached out to Tom Corson Knowles and said, hey, thanks so much. His book really helped me, and I'm on the top 20 of my category because of you. Just thanks a lot. And he was like, cool, man. Like, I hope those links are doing well for you. And I was like, what does that mean? What links? He's like, you have links in your books, right? I'm like, no, but I'll do that now. Thanks, Tom.
Well, it sounds like you succeeded despite yourself in some level here, Jordan.
Yeah.
Take us forward. So you made enough to keep traveling. What happened next?
So next, again, those 3 books existed. I was still putting out 1 or 2 blog posts per week, and which again, by some people's standards, isn't a ton. But I knew that for the entire existence of my personal brand, I would rather be putting out 1 post a week that I'm actually really proud of and I know is valuable than putting out 4 or 5 posts a week that I feel like are all watered down. That's been my content strategy is, no matter how under SEO optimized they are or whatever, it's like if I write good things, then people will find a way to spread it for me. And so it was around the 4th or 5th month that I think people who'd been following my work on Facebook and people that had known about my books started to see that, okay, this person is consistently putting out real value. He's not just trying out a blog for a couple of weeks and then going away forever. So I think the consistency and the kind of brand momentum started to take over. And I think it was around then that my first online clients, maybe my 4th month, that my first online client hired me that I didn't know in real life. Like just someone that had been reading my stuff on Facebook and was a friend of a friend and said, hey, I love your stuff. I'd love to chat with you on how to be the best partner possible, since that's kind of what all of your blog posts are speaking to. And obviously coaching was, even though my rates were much lower then than they are today, being able to do coaching for, I think at that point it was $100 for an hour, that blew my mind. It's like, okay, I can do $1,000 a month for selling all these books that took me a lot of hours to create, but I can do coaching and make, someone can hire me for $500 worth of coaching and I just get all that money today and then I just have to talk with them and help. Like that's amazing. That's mind blowing. That's like an entire book of effort in 5 hours financially.
Right.
So yeah, that's when I started to hire clients that I didn't know in real life. And
I'm guessing that was a big moment too, that first client.
Totally. Oh yeah, it was huge. And I think like a lot of people that do any form of coaching or consulting, our first hour, and it was like, oh, it's supposed to be like, it's $100 per hour. It's a hard boundary. We stopped at the 60-minute mark. I'm sure we talked for close to like 2.5 hours. And here's all my books for free. And like I threw the metaphorical book at them and, gave so much value because I just wanted to hit a massive home run and, really show up for stuff. In my mind, it was like paying for a month of living in Bali. It's like, I will go to the ends of the earth to really make sure that you have a good experience with me.
He probably helped you more than you helped him in some levels in terms of just your progress, your confidence, your lifestyle and so on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how does that turn into a 6-figure business? So what happened next?
So yeah, that's about, let's say that's 6 months in, and
still no email list, right?
I might have had it around, because I was traveling for just under 5 months. I came back to Vancouver probably in my 5th month of travel. And I think at that point, when I was back around some entrepreneurial friends, and they saw my website and they're like, I couldn't find your, like, how do I subscribe? Where's your email list? I'm like, what's that? And they're like, what's that? They're like, you're like an Amazon bestseller and you don't know what an email list is? I was like, nope. And so I went back and talked to that same web designer and said, hey, can you put on an email list? He's like, oh my God, dude, I didn't give you an email list. I was like, oh, that's okay. I didn't ask for it. Like, I didn't know. So yeah, I think I started my email list then. And
what did you offered subscribe to my updates as the reason to join your email list?
I think I gave away my first free book, like the one that is the least brand congruent now. And even back then, it wasn't really what I was writing about, but I was like, here's this free 30-page PDF if you want, I guess. But yeah, it was mainly because the offer was increasingly unaligned with what I was actually writing about. It was more of a, if you've really loved my stuff, here's how to subscribe to my emails to find out when new content comes out. So yeah, I basically just, after those first 3 books, I didn't write a book for another 4 or 5 months. It was near the end of my first year that I wrote my biggest book that was by far the most brand congruent. And yeah, I think I just continued to put out 1 or 2 blog posts per week, and I got more and more coaching clients. And at that point, more and more people were following me on Facebook. I started to be on other people's podcasts. And I think it was during that process that I found out that I really enjoyed helping, like hyper intentional, super driven people, which was almost always entrepreneurs. And so although I never branded myself exclusively as the relationship coach for entrepreneurs, because I didn't really like the limitation of just being towards those people, over 90% of my clients through the lifetime existence of my brand have been self-employed entrepreneurs, because they just are those kind of people that want to take every area of their life to the most optimized place. So my relationship advice, you can see this from any of my blog posts. It's not, here's how to have a kind of functioning relationship, or here's how to get any girlfriend. It's, you're already doing well, you don't need me. Here's how to go from a 7 out of 10 to 10 out of 10.
Okay, so can you take us through, like, you've got a course now, you've got more coverage. Did everything just sort of compound? Okay, let's go back in time. Vancouver, you're back in your hometown.
Yep.
But at that stage, how much were you making per month online in total?
At that point, maybe 3,000 between the books and coaching.
And that's like 3,000 US, I would assume.
Yeah, it would be, because I was charging US dollars in both those products.
Okay, so and how many clients do you think you're dealing with at that stage?
I'd say on a weekly basis, maybe I was talking to 5 to 10 people.
Okay, so it's a fairly robust private coaching practice going on there, as well as a Kindle income stream.
Yeah.
How did you even think about your next direction? Because it doesn't sound like you had a lot of coaches or people to follow in terms of growing your online business. So how did you get an idea for what to do next?
I think the video courses were the next big idea for me, because I can't remember who it was. I think I saw someone who's in my personal network in the health and wellness space do some video courses, and he told me, he's like, oh yeah, like it's really beautiful, and I hired this guy, and it was like really inexpensive, and now they're generating revenue on a monthly basis. And I was like, oh, like how much do you pay for them? He's like, only 30 grand. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And I think this is, again, in that kind of when someone tells you I can't do something in vain, I want to do it or do it better. And there was some piece of me that was like, I went to film school, I know how to shoot and edit video really well, and I can rent a camera, shoot my entire video course by myself for $200. Like the fact that someone spent, 5-figure payday on creating these courses just blew my mind. And so I think, kind of as a challenge to myself, I wanted to see if I could make video courses that I was proud of for a fraction of the price. I also wanted to try writing sales copy, because I had to make a sales page for each of my 3 video courses. And so, yeah, I basically, again, being a kind of rapid action taker, I'm a quick start on a Colby test. I get an idea, I want to do it as fast as possible. And yeah, so I outlined and wrote these 3 video courses, rented a camera, hired a location, shot all 3 video courses in one day. Wow. And edited all 3 of them within the next 10 days while writing my sales copy. And
how long was each course?
They're pretty short. I think the shortest one was about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and the longest one was just under 2 hours. They're all video content.
So you did like 6 hours worth of video content to create 3 courses in one
exactly.
day. Okay.
Exactly.
So you wrote a sales page for one of the courses during that time?
No, for all 3.
Oh, for all 3. So 3 sales pages.
Yeah.
How big were those sales pages?
They are, I think the shortest one's about 1,800 words, and the longest one's like 3,500 words. So
within almost a weekend, you did 3 courses and 3 sales pages.
Yeah. Or with the video editing, all in, 3 weeks.
Okay. And then the idea was to release one after the other, just to your own network, your email list, your Facebook followers, your blog, and so on?
that was the idea. But as is often the case with me, since I'm fairly impulsive, I'll often this happens. If anyone listening to this is on my website, you'll see that almost all of the articles that I release, I'll write a bunch and go, oh, this will last me a month, and then I'll put all three of them out on the same day and just go, here it is, everyone. Actually, this morning I did exactly that. I put out 3 blog posts that I was really proud of, and I was sitting on for a while, and I was like, oh, I'll just put them all out now, and people choose their own adventure.
You're the Netflix of blog posts, huh? You just dump the whole season in one go.
Exactly. Do whatever you want.
Binge read Jordan Gray.
That's exactly what I do with my video courses. Again, I found out after the fact that smart business people and marketers were like, dude, that kind of should have lasted you half a year of launches. Yeah, but I basically I had no, there was no Jeff Walker's product launch formula. There was no strategy. There was no pre-selling or marketing or even warning to my email list of followers. I just said, here's 3 video courses. They're done. And so I put them up on my website. I emailed them out. I talked about them on Facebook once or twice. And yeah, I think the sales were a little underwhelming compared to what I imagined could be possible. Again, knowing nothing about business at that point, and still kind of today, they made maybe $2,000 or $3,000 their first month, but cumulatively, I'm not my business's numbers person, but I know they've made tens of thousands of dollars because they just sit there. And my most successful one, called Supercharge Your Sex Life, still does anywhere from $200 to $500 a week. And that's been going for 2 years. So.
Right. Okay. So I know you're not a tech person, but to deliver a course is a little bit like a video course is a little bit more technical than just a blog. So how did you password protect this content and give people a unique login and so on?
So yeah, again, that was all outsourced to my web guy. Okay. I used them intermittently. So anytime, it's like when he first made the website, I said, I just want to know enough so that I can load in a blog post because that's all I need to do for now. Like Skype, I know how to use Skype. I can do that. That's a separate thing. But as long as people can find me and the money comes through, then whatever. And when the video courses were going to be a thing, same thing. I said, I'm going to make a video course. Is it possible to put video on this website? He said, yeah, absolutely. I said, okay, I'll let you know when they're done. And then he just made he password protected, made the back end for each one of those. And I still have no idea how they work, but I know that they do work.
They're on your blog as well, I assume then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty amazing. You don't know what's going on, but it's working, so that's what matters. Yeah. Okay, so what were the 3 titles? So one was Supercharge Your Sex Life. The other ones were?
The other one is called Fight Less, Love More. And then the third one is How to Find Your Ideal Partner.
And you're just coming up with the subject matter because you've done so much coaching now. You obviously know what people want. So it's the private coaching is really helping you get ideas for ebooks and courses. Is that right?
Exactly. Completely.
Okay, fantastic. So your business is looking more robust now. You've got a fairly well-established blog. Your email list, I assume, was growing by that stage. Your Facebook following. You had all 4 or 5 Kindle books out the door. Yep. You've got 3 courses now, and that would have been $2,000. So you would have made instead maybe $4,000 or $5,000 that month. I keep saying this. What happened next, Jordan? Where are we at this stage? What year are we in? A couple of years ago now?
Yeah, I'd say that was probably just over a year, maybe year and a half. Just under a year of my business existing, from it starting. And it's around that point so I had an email list that, maybe had 200, 300 people on it, which again, half of the emails, when I looked at them, I knew their names. I was like, oh, that's a client, that's a friend, that's my uncle, etc. And I think it was around that point that just like the email list moment when someone found out they didn't have that, they're like, how do you not have that? That I think I had, maybe 80 to 100 blog posts on my site. And it was at that point that someone gave me that same kind of reaction, that same shocked reaction of, you haven't guest posted anywhere? And I was like, what's guest posting? They're like, it's when you write content for other people. I was like, why do I do that? And they're like, because people know about them more than they know about you, and you can leverage your audience. I was like, that sounds brilliant. I'm going to do that. And you can actually see, like if you look at the month over month of my website's traffic, you can see where I made the decision to start posting anywhere else because my traffic was fairly abysmal. Like I didn't really have huge numbers at all. When I had 100 or 200 visitors in a day, it would blow my mind. I was like, 200 people? Who are these people? Who's watching my stuff? I didn't have Google Analytics. I just had the Jetpack plugin on my WordPress that I could look at because it was more pretty. And Google Analytics, every time I looked at it, it would numb my brain because it looked way too technical and boring. So it was around that point that I decided that I wanted to start guest posting on other websites. And in kind of crazy metaphysical law of attraction type stuff, within a couple of weeks of me just making that decision, the executive editor of a website called the Good Men Project reached out and said, hey, we really like a few of your posts. Do you mind if we put these 2 or 3 of your existing posts on our site? And I was like, I don't have to do more work to get more traffic. I was like, yeah, go for it. You can totally do that. And I did some research on them, and I found out that they had somewhere between 4 to 6 million visitors per month. And again, at this point, I maybe had, 10,000-ish. Like my numbers were nothing in my mind. They were huge to me, but now it's like I do that in a day, what I used to do in a month. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they posted 2 or 3 of my posts on their website, and there were days when they launched posts of mine where I'd get so much referred traffic just from the bio link that my traffic would double on those days. And I was like, okay, there's clearly something to this. I'm going to focus on just this for a while. And so I started to write unique content for them because I thought I want to be on their good side as much as possible because they're sending me a lot of awesomeness. And those people weren't just numbers, but they were also, I'd see big spikes in my email list subscribers, and I'd get a video course buyer or 2. So I was like, okay, this is a huge opportunity that I even know that this is something to pay attention to and chase down. So I started giving them a ton of content. I'd email them and say, here's another 5 of my posts that exist I think would also do well with your kind of crowd. And here's 3 unique posts that you can use whenever. And I just kept doubling down with them. And within a month or so of my first post with them, other websites would also syndicate those posts from them. And so I'd get more and more links from other people. And I think on the second month of posting with them, they asked me to be their full-time sex and relationships editor. So I wouldn't have to go through their executive editor anymore. I could just load in my own content whenever I wanted, launch it all the time. And I was also on the hook to put out a certain number of posts per week through them. So it also gave me the opportunity to repurpose some of the content of my friends and colleagues that I'd now made in similar or overlapping industry. So, again, it kind of gave me more social capital of, hey, I can get you on this website that's like, a page rank 7, and I can get you loads of traffic as well. And I never see that as competition. To me, it's like, they can either be your competitors or your colleagues, and you might as well be friends with them. If you think if you actually believe in their message and their content is good, then I was, overjoyed to fill one of my content slots with one of my friends' posts. But yeah, I was getting massive traffic from them, and I more than doubled within those first 2 months just by the direct traffic they were seeing, or the referral traffic they were sending me, and the links I was building from other people, which it was around that time that Google knew about me and also started to send me organic SEO traffic. Mm-hmm.
I can see on your website you've now been featured BBC, Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, Business Insider, Yahoo.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, although a lot of those are business sites, you're actually talking about relationships for business people in those articles.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's bringing targeted audience back to your site.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you just sort of in the last kind of 5-10 minutes we've got here, Jordan, paint a picture of how your business works today? So is it pretty much everything we've talked about? Anything else on top of that?
Those are all the major components: the books, video courses, and coaching. Right now, I'm scaling back coaching a bit. My hourly rate is 4 times what it was when I first started. And so I'm doing less coaching hours for more revenue. And I'm realizing that I really enjoy the most creative elements of my business. So I'm kind of coaching less and writing more and finding more ways to monetize that. So I'm thinking about rolling out a one of those little like monthly contribution buttons, testing that out, seeing if that works. Because the more I can get to the passive financial elements and things that encourage me to just be able to live in the creative side, that's what I'm most excited about today.
Okay, fantastic. So, looking over your website, jordangrayconsulting.com, I love that it's all on a blog. So you deliver your courses, your membership area, take your payments, you write your blog posts, even your books are linked there. So it's all kind of just through this blog. And it's not a complicated design. It's clean. It's one column design. I love that. And I love that you don't know how it works in terms of technical things. You just tell your tech guy and the outcome is there.
Yeah.
Could we just switch the lens to the listener briefly here for the last 5 minutes? They're listening to you and they're, first of all, thinking, okay, well, first of all, on some level, if Jordan could do this, I could do this, because he was kind of, I don't want to insult you, but it felt a bit like you were bumbling along with some of the things you were doing over certainly in the earlier period of time.
Yeah.
And yet you've still reached this point, making over 6 figures a year, and you also have found a business model where you can do the thing you're good at and let other people handle the technical aspects and so on. You do the copy, you do the teaching, you do the coaching, which I think is, it's what I love. It's what the listeners love too. But they're, for some reason, hitting these roadblocks. They can't even get the blog up. They're scared about, providing private coaching because they don't know who they should sell to or what they should sell. So could you just think back, well, maybe it's not relevant quite to your situation, but to people who are at the start of this journey and they just can't get something out the door. What would you tell them to do first to start building the sort of business that you now have today?
I think it's so individualized because it depends on what specifically the person's fear block is. If it's around, I'm not technical, which was one of my things, then it's like, okay, then maybe the only financial investment that you make in your business is taking care of the technical stuff. Like, as much as you can free up your time and attention to work on things that you're actually excited about, that's like the greatest investment that you can make in your business, is outsource whatever makes you want to cry, or give up on the whole thing, because ultimately your time and attention is the most important thing that you have, and so you want to be freeing that up. If it's no one knows about me, or I'm not a good writer, or I don't like writing, I'd rather do video content, it's like, whatever it is, I think as long as you have some unique form of value to offer, just work in an aligned way, but work your ass off to get whatever that value is out there, and just give it all away for free for as long as you can. And really, that's been my entire strategy: is be so good that they can't ignore you, and just keep giving so much value that eventually your readers tell you how they want to pay you. It's like, I want coaching, make a coaching page, or I want you to write more about this, write me a book, or I want a more in-depth video structure on this pain point. It's like, every product and service I've ever offered through my website has been through multiple people asking for it. And like that 50 Powerful Date Ideas book is a perfect example. When enough married guys asked me, what should I do for our anniversary? What kind of date should I take her on? I didn't want to answer that question anymore because it bored me. So I was like, here's a product. You can just use this forever now, and I can never answer that question again. But like, your followers will kind of create for you by telling you, here's what the market wants. Like, this is how we want to pay you next.
Fantastic. I love the hustle for starters. The fact that you put so much stuff out there, and I love that it's all based on just giving your best content away. That foundation principles for what I've been teaching myself through blogging for many years, and it's great to see someone living it, and also starting with potentially a very generic, as you said, crowded marketplace and making this work. So, congratulations, Jordan, for that as well. Not much else to ask you. You've got your story. I think you are a very inspirational case study for people who are just getting started, who don't necessarily know where to go, but if they can just take that basic philosophy of put your best work out there and see who shows up, and then wait till the clients ask to get more from you and start building products and services around that. That's a brilliant strategy. It's just all kinds of blockages seem to get in the way. So the more case studies we have like you, the more people will follow through, which is fantastic. So jordangrayconsulting.com is the number one spot for you. Any other websites you want to share with people?
That's the main one. If people want to find my books, they can go onto Amazon and just search Jordan Gray.
Okay, fantastic. Before I wrap it up, Jordan, what's the big plan for the sort of short-term future for your business?
The short-term structure or plan is that I'm now working with a business coach for the first time ever, and this has just started over this week. So I'm not completely able to say, not from a legal standpoint, but just because I don't know yet. I'm about to be told. So I guess that action plan is, I've taken myself to a ceiling that I can with my business, knowledge and ability, and now it's building out a team so that I can purely work within my zone of genius and have other people tell me what to do strategically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, good luck with that. And I'll definitely keep an eye on your work, especially because you're in Vancouver and I may end up living or getting a base in Vancouver too. So it's good to find more people doing similar things on the internet. So thank you for coming on my show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Jordan, and thank you everyone who's listened in to this Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. If you'd like to get the show notes and the transcript of Jordan's interview, just head to entrepreneurs-journey.com and go to the podcast section and look for Jordan Gray, and you'll find all the details there. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jordan Gray. I found that very inspiring to see how much Jordan could achieve with fairly limited technical skills, but also because of how reliant and how much Jordan's got from blogging. His blog has been a real powerful force for building his audience, where he writes his regular articles on relationships, but also it's where he sells his products. He writes his sales pages on his blog, and he delivers those courses as well through a member protected area, which is on his blog. So pretty much everything is on this blog, and he's built an amazing business through the power of blogging. If you'd like to follow in Jordan's footsteps, then I do recommend you get yourself a copy of my free report, The Blog Profits Blueprint. You can get that at blogprofitsblueprint.com. If you haven't got that already, just sign up to my Blog Profits newsletter and I'll send you a copy of the blueprint in both PDF and audio. And that really outlines my entire process for setting up basically what Jordan's done, a blog that sells digital products and services. So if you have an idea for something you want to help people with and you want to write and sell digital products and services, go get yourself a copy of the Blog Profits Blueprint. Well, that's it for this episode of the EJ Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you again on the next episode. My name is Yaros Starek. Talk to you soon.